than picture night.
I just got this thing to sign as the clerk.
This meeting is called to order.
That's a big deal.
This is the Tuesday, July 9th meeting of the Board of Selectmen. I have a motion to approve the bills, payrolls, and warrants.
So move.
Second.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
there's one warrant that I will abstain from. I don't have the number, but it was the warrant related, the 2020 warrant due to a transfer from the Light Department for SMC. I'm a board member of SMC, so I don't have that warrant number, but others I'm fine with.
So abstain for that.
Correct.
Okay, so all those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. No, abstention on that one is
Yep,
noted.
in favor of the others. Yep, thank you.
I have a motion to approve the minutes of the June 25th meeting.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion is second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Announcements. Does anybody have any announcements this evening?
Mr. Chairman, just by way of a reminder, the Beal Building Committee will be in to update the board at our first meeting in August.
Okay, great. Thank you. Town manager's report. Mr. Mizuka, do you have anything to report?
Yes, please. I'd like to start off, and we can get into some details later on, but just announcing, we were very pleased to report that the town has received AAA bond rating from Standard & Poor's. It's our first AAA bond rating. It's actually an increase of 2 rating levels over our previous rating, which was done in 2017. It's the highest credit rating that we can receive, and that S&P Global provides. Some of the highlights from that rating include their review of a very strong economy, strong budgetary performance, strong financial management, strong management. And I will quote that we rate the town higher than the nation because we believe Shrewsbury can better maintain credit characteristics than the nation in a stress scenario. So I find that very rewarding, and want to thank everyone who contributed not only to the bond rating presentation that we've made, but to the service to the town. This is not something that happens overnight. It takes years of planning and diligence in how we manage our financials. So it will mean a significant savings to the project. We put a lot of effort into this and got great rewards, so I'm very thankful for that. And finally, I just wanted to note 2 more things, actually. We have published a request for proposals for owner's project manager services for the police station and municipal campus feasibility study. That is officially available tomorrow, July 10th. And we have begun our new trash hauling program or trash collection, recycling collection program since the last meeting. And we are still very much in the transition period. We thank everyone for their patience and encourage folks to continue to monitor which recycling week it is. This is a commingled week, so no paper or cardboard. And have your materials all out at the curb. While the trucks may be hitting all the same streets that they were hitting on a prior Tuesday or Wednesday, their start times or start locations may be different, and their timing, you may have been used to being picked up at 10 after 7, and we may not be actually getting to you till 3 o'clock in the afternoon or vice versa. So we're just asking for everyone to have their materials out by 7 a.m. And if anyone has any questions, there's a lot of information on the website, a couple links to our Facebook page, or you can call the DPW department and have them answered.
Thank you. I just want to go back on the bond rating. Your office and school committee, school department, treasurer's office, I think did a great job putting all that together. And I think it made a big difference. I think the presentation went very, very well. And Mr. Kane was there. So there was a lot of hard work in the presentation also, not just over the past couple of years. I want to commend you folks for that. The only other thing I wanted to add was on the trash. Waste Management has a different way of picking the trash up, different method. They do not let their employees cross the street. So you may see the truck go down the street and pick up everybody, looks like everybody else's, but your whole side of the street didn't get picked up. And that is because they actually run the route twice. They run it picking up, say, the right side of the street, finish that, come back, and they do the left side of the street because they don't want their people crossing the road. So I know there was some questions on that when people looked out the window and saw their trash after the truck went by, but sure enough, a little bit later, they came back and got it, so. Anyways, I think it's going well for big transition. So anyways, anything else before we move on?
Let me just touch on the bond
Sure.
rating. My recollection is this is a two-step jump.
It is a two-step jump.
So
yes.
it demonstrates the years of, I think, just stick-to-itiveness that the prior manager and his team maintained, that Kevin has carried forward in his own way, that finance committees, this board, the town meeting. It's really, I think, the culmination of years' work, and they're recognizing not just that on the public sector side, but also the fact that the private sector has chosen to invest greatly in Shrewsbury. A variety of the companies that are at Lakeway Commons are known for their demographic analysis before they locate a store. And the fact that we have a market basket now on the verge of coming here is also the result of their due diligence, not just in Shrewsbury, but in the greater region. So I don't want to pass over the significance of this, and I know Kevin will touch on the expected cost avoidance as a result of the interest rate received in an earlier placement, or the placement literally from today, I think. So I just wanted to touch base that I think in some ways, it's a bit of a curse now because we have to maintain it. Having another step to go would have been an interesting objective, but we got it, and folks should be very pleased and proud of that.
Right.
Thank you.
There's only 60 municipalities in the state that have that, somewhere in that area.
Yeah, a little over 60. Yep.
Quite a feat. Okay, our next order of business is a meeting with Richard Ricker and Helen D. Lynn, proposed manager of KBB Enterprises LLC, DBA Imperial Buffet, 380 Maple Ave, for a change of manager to their all-alcohol pouring license. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Richard Ricker, and with me here tonight is Helen Lynn, who has been working at the Imperial Buffet, which we all know where it is down the bottom of the street here. For about 12 years, she's been in various capacities in that business, and she's been working the floor for 50-plus hours a week and on a regular basis. And the owners asked her, and she agreed that she would like to be the manager. So this is a request to change the manager to her name, and I think that she, with her experience, is ultimately qualified to do so.
Okay. Nothing else is changing, just
No.
change of manager.
Yep.
I believe paperwork all appears to be in order. So, unless you have anything to add?
No, I think it's pretty straightforward. You know,
Got to
it's
do it,
nice to
though.
be able to say little things and very quickly.
Yeah. Okay, what's the pleasure of the board? This isn't a public hearing, it's not required, so.
Motion approved.
Second.
Okay, a motion second. Any further comments? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, so voted. There you go.
Thank you very much.
Your stuff will all go off to Boston tomorrow, right?
Thank you very much.
You'll be all set. Thank you.
Success.
Okay.
Have a good night, and
Yep.
congratulations.
Thank you.
Okay, next order of business is a meeting with the Beal Reuse Committee for a presentation on the recommendations for the disposition of the Beal Elementary School at 1 Maple Ave. We have a committee of myself, Keith Baldinger, I always get it wrong, Keith, sorry. Paul Campanello, Bob Cox, Mary Beth Lynch, and Angela Snell. And we were charged, I don't know, 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, to do some work, and we are at the point now where we're ready to make a report back to the board, and Mr. Campanello will review the written report that you all received, and we'll open it up for discussion. So, good evening.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and fellow Beal Reuse Committee member, Selectmen, Mr. Samia, Town Manager, Mr. Misakar, Mr. DiPaolo, Kate, and Ms. Cassavan. It is my understanding, and it's been confirmed, you've all already received a copy of this report. with that understanding, I'm not going to sit here and read a report to you that you've already been read. I thought I might hit a few of the high notes, and I'm here with as Mr. DiPaolo said, two of my fellow committee members, and then we'll jump on for discussion. That having been said, I'm just going to hit a few of the highlights. Opening, as we said, the purpose of the report was to provide the selectmen with recommendations for the reuse of the existing property at 1 Maple Ave. We believe whatever the use or design is chosen through the RFP process should generate the highest and best outcomes for the town, including tax roll, lack of maintenance, things of that nature. I'll skip down a little bit. The committee, in its brief 18-month, 24-month history, held 9 public meetings, 2 of which were public hearings, 1 meeting including discussion with the Historic District Commission and the Planning Board. This committee worked very closely in lockstep for most of the time with Mr. Cahill and Ms. Lass, and we also spent a significant amount of time with the Horsley Witten Group and Ms. O'Neill of Mass Development as this particular initiative overlapped on the Town Center initiative. In 2018, this town, as you know, was a recipient of a technical assistant grant to act as a tool for envisioning the future guide in Beale School. We worked with that committee and with that tool, and in many from many facets, that tool and that report helped shape our recommendations. And again, it was a very collaborative approach that we had several meetings with those previously mentioned folks. The final report, which I think you also have received a copy, or if not, it's certainly been made aware to you, was dated May 29th, and it summarizes surveys in response to Beale School, identified and collated and commonly reported opinions from the town, and kind of served as a framework of potential options. That brings us to our recommendations, which start kind of halfway down page 2. Again, I won't read, but I'll highlight. The critical recommendation for us is the impact on the town center. The redevelopment of that property should make, and this seems like broad language, but it is, a significant positive impact to the appeal and the aesthetic of that town center. We were going for what we often referred to with one another as the quaint New England town feel look, the Concord look, the Wellesley look, where there'd be a mixed-use development. To that end, the RFP, we do not believe should restrict the tax status of the proposed use of the parcel, and we should believe it should be based on a holistic view, designed to promote the impact on the cultural and the economic activity in the town center. Proposals for the property should be subject to review by people like yourself, the peer review, town center itself. In terms of reuse, developers should be allowed to explore the possible adaptive reuse. However, this committee wants to be very, very clear that we recognize that that is a high bar, and I think we should be open to looking at any possible options for a redevelopment. Now I'll just follow the sub-bullets in terms of design. We were very clear that we wanted mixed use along Maple Ave. We wanted a vertical appeal, as we said, New England town style look and feel. We were clear that the Veterans Memorial shall be preserved in its entirety. We did give a little bit of breadth and depth to the recommendation, saying in its current location or in a predominant location, if there was a storefront or a driveway or something, but the essence and the meticulousness and the beauty of it should all be maintained. We all know, I'm sure we all know, that there's a messaging board there now. The developer should work with the Board of Selectmen to provide some sort of public messaging system. The building should engage and maintain access to Veterans Memorial, even if that means moving spacing one way or another. New buildings should be located along the primary sidewalk, in other words, not so far back. The number of curb cuts on Maple Ave should be minimized. And then this is something, again, that the committee felt really strongly about. If you think about the parcel now, and I'm sure you all know it pretty well, the back 33% of that land is a ball field, and Angela was on the committee with us. We believe that that should be preserved in some way, shape, and form as open space. Now, it doesn't necessarily have to be a ball field. It can be a green space, a park, a walk-through, but a lot of the traffic from the neighborhoods behind the Wesleyan, Knowlton, Wesleyan Terrace, Wesleyan Street, access that area through there. So we felt if there was some sort of green space in that way. Areas that are not designed for building or parking should be designated as easily accessible gathering spots. And then we move on to parking. The site should include the concept of shared parking. This was another recommendation to come out of the overall report. So, and that should be open for negotiation between you folks and the developer. The town should be able to have parking for the town guaranteed. Goes on about parking, site access. We talked about circulation. We need to consider the best ways for autos to enter and exit, probably not off of Maple Ave, or maybe only one curb cut off of Maple Ave. We wanted to consider bike systems as well. And then I guess the last thing that I would touch on before either of my peers have comments is prohibited uses. We felt we didn't want to be restrictive, and we really spent probably more time on this particular issue than anything else. But there should be some things that should be straight out prohibited and should be in the RFP as such. I will read those bullets word for word, just so we're all clear on that recommendation, because I think I speak for everyone that this was something that a lot of thought went into. Large retail or commercial, single-story, single-use buildings. Think, if you will, of a giant CVS, something like that. I don't mean to single out CVS, but that's a good visual example. A gas station, a motor vehicle display or repair shop, Al's Automotive Repair, or, an oil or Sunoco gas station, something like that. A drive-through of any type, whether it's a CVS or a McDonald's, drive-through of any type. And this probably would not be a fit for the property, but we put it in there, large-scale manufacturing and industrial, any kind of storage, any kind of adult use establishments, and any kind of marijuana establishments. Those were the things that we felt strongly about. Beyond that, there's an RFP process that needs to hand off. As we said, and I know your last page of your report was our initial charter. Our initial charter brought us to this point, meaning the point of making recommendations to you, the Board of Selectmen. At this point, I believe it'll be Mrs. Lass and Mr. Cahill that'll work with the people doing the RFP to take it from that point forward. So we are happy to entertain any questions. I'll let either of my colleagues speak if they have anything to add to that.
You did a wonderful job.
Go on.
Paul, I mean, you did a good job, and you went through it quickly, that was good.
This is my gift.
Thank you. One of the things that needs to be addressed in the entire town center is the zoning. And Horsley Witten in the town center study gave us some ideas, some suggested wording, but the business district, as it's currently defined in the center, is really not conducive to town center type businesses. It's more geared towards the Route 9 business corridor. So we're recommending that changes be made that are appropriate to the town center, and through the RFP process, let me step back. We don't think we should put in the RFP specific zoning at this point, because our recommendation to the Board of Selectmen is keep this thing as open as possible. And to do that, we don't want to restrict the zoning to this or that. It could be height, could be setbacks or whatever. After the RFP and the proposals are evaluated, the board and staff could negotiate with the potential developer on what the zoning should be most conducive to a good project, and then bring it forward to town meeting. So that is part of a schedule that Ms. Lass has been working on. So I just wanted to point that out, that to make this thing successful, the zoning cannot stay the way it is. Not just for Beal, but the entire center. So I just want to make sure that everyone was aware of that. So having said all that, does anybody have any questions? No questions?
Go ahead.
I don't want to jump in. You can go first.
You go first.
All right. So I just think that this entire opportunity is so monumental, and that we have this ability to really think about this town center and how it's going to progress and grow for future generations. Like, it's such a unique opportunity, and I really do appreciate all the thought and the work that's gone into this. I think I came to your very first public meeting like 18 months ago, because I think it was like bad weather and I was stuck home with the kids for like a snow day, and I was like, I'm just leaving the house, and there's no one here, and we were all just kind of talking with really no idea, because we didn't know whether or not the school project would pass. But you've come so far in that time, and I attended one of your meetings maybe like 2 meetings ago, and there's so much to talk about and so much to distill down, but you did a great job with this report, and I think you came up with every little detail right down to like not losing the message board. As far as what we want in the center, but you also managed to keep it open enough that a developer can really let their imagination take over and present something that's going to be the best use for the town. My question is though, so if your charge ends with like getting us to this point, the Board of Selectmen is supposed to take over the RFP process. Is there a way to maybe extend that and let the committee continue their work because they're so invested in it?
Chair, I'd love to respond to that based on.
Sure, go ahead.
So it's funny you should ask, so to speak, because we had this exact conversation at our last meeting. I think Ms. Lass is gonna run the RFP process, and she was at our last meeting and essentially, in not so many words, asked the same question. What we said is, this committee, and I'm speaking for all of us, because this very issue came up, would love to be involved in a consultative fashion, an associate fashion with the RFP process moving forward. And Ms. Lass thought the same thing, that would make sense. That having been said, the charter of this committee ends with this recommendation. So if the Board of Selectmen saw fit to amend the charter of this committee and say, carry it through as a, working with Ms. Lass in the RFP process, I know I speak for the committee and say we would be more than inclined to do that, because our concern was the spirit of these recommendations. To your point that you just paraphrased, the open-endedness, the developer creativity, all of those get carried through in the development of the RFP. And so if we are able to do that and the board's able to see fit, I would certainly, I know I speak for the committee and say we would do that. Mo is our chair, and he thought the exact same thing, so we just didn't want to overstep.
Right.
So you can make a motion to extend their charter until 6 months, the balance of this year, whatever we see fit.
Ms. Lass believes the RFP process will begin shortly and will be a roughly 3-month process. So I think, to your point, Mr. Kane, if you said the remainder of this year, you're more than comfortably bookending it.
All right,
Well, that's a delivery of the RFP to the board.
Yeah.
Right.
we could do it that way
After that.
too, that would make
Either way.
sense.
So moved.
Okay, perfect.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, any other discussion on this?
I didn't.
You didn't,
Lock
I
you.
think, no, that was well done.
Whenever a government starts off on something like this, there's a tendency to overprescribe and spec basically the paperclip. And then when no one bids, everyone's shocked that no one bid. So I think the biggest, there are two great achievements, I think, that you and the professional staff have accomplished, rather. And that is arriving at some type of solicitation, because I'm not sure whether it's an RFP, RFI, or what have you. The lawyer will figure that out. But you've done a great job in creating soft four corners. You haven't overprescribed, which is a great achievement. And you also were able to play off of the two studies that we had ongoing with mass development and the somewhat independent business organization for the center of town. And I think those are two great accomplishments to not be overlooked. So I'm eager to get whatever it should be technically entitled out to the marketplace and give people enough time to come up with their ideas. We know, and I think you've done a nice job of capturing what we don't want. So we're wide open to any creative, rational, sane ideas that might be out there, and I think you guys have done a great job.
Yeah.
So I would make a motion to accept the report.
Second.
Second? Okay, we have a motion, second. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Voted? Good, thank you. It's a good group to work with, so.
Led by a wonderful chairman.
Oh, absolutely.
Really, it was all the leadership, Mr. Kane. It was all the leadership of the group.
Trying to keep all you cats together.
So, the only other thing, I would imagine during the RFP process, there'll probably be at least one public hearing, as we start to,
And Ms. Lass also said during the RFP process, she was awaiting a grant. I don't know, Mr. Mizikar, if that's come in yet or not, or she thought literally any day kind of thing.
Yep.
That there's a consultant's grant to help manage the RFP process along with her. So we really would be consultative on that. And she was waiting to hear back about that grant and the consultant that would run that.
and we're still waiting. Okay? Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next order of business is to review and act on the intermunicipal agreement with the City of Worcester for the Central Mass Regional Public Health Alliance for a 3-year term to commence July 1st, 2019, and expire on June 30th, 2022. pretty much, this hasn't really changed, right? This is
No, I
almost
can-
like a renewal.
Yeah, I can highlight a couple of changes. And Mr. Samia pointed out one change on the first page that I do think that we need to make in content that's not there yet, but I think it's de minimis and that it should say in the first section, acting through the Board of Selectmen, because that is the requirement of our form of government when it comes to intermunicipal agreements rather than through the manager. So we will alter the document before sending it back to the City of Worcester. Other changes, is a 2% increase per year over the next 3 years, which can be found on page 2. Page 7 of the document, the 7th bullet, just some language change related to assisting the town with the annual report rather than preparing the annual report as it previously said. On page 7, under environmental health, it was changed to include file and process all necessary inspection reports. And then on page 9, they removed the mention of the Mass Department of Public Health, MTCP tobacco program. This will continue to, the city will continue to provide tobacco service to the Alliance towns within our group, but there is no longer any state funding, so that was removed for those purposes. But as you said, Mr. Chairman, it's really just a renewal of, I think, our 4th or 5th agreement with the city for these purposes.
This has worked out really well.
Yes.
I think better than any of us could have expected.
Absolutely.
It's been fantastic.
We also had a unique issue come up relative to a question on the Beal design, and the resources were there for us as a result of this proposal.
Oh, great. Okay, so, will somebody make a motion to accept or agree to sign the document to extend the intermunicipal agreement for 3 more years?
So
So
moved.
moved. Second.
Okay, motion is second. Any further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Item 8 is to review and act to authorize the chairman to sign a letter of authorization to extend the intermunicipal animal control agreement with Westboro and Grafton for a period of 1 year to expire June 30th, 2020. Mr. Miska, this is, again, basically renewal, right?
We did sign our first agreement, which only lasted 1 year, and we are seeking approval to extend it for an additional year. Again, the town relies upon this document and this relationship more for mutual aid purposes in the event that our animal control officer is out on leave, expected or unexpected, and we need these type of services, whereas the 2 other towns actually share a single employee, but we still benefit from the agreement, so I'd recommend continuing this relationship.
Okay, it's a pleasure of the board.
How is it working?
It's working well. I mean, I think there's been limited impact on the town as far as utilization of our animal control officer in the other towns, which I think is what we expected and what we hoped, but it has come in handy, either us providing services to them or them coming to us for unforeseen instances, so, yeah.
Okay.
I think we still continue to have our own animal control officer that provides great service to the town, Keith Elms, which came on board at the retirement of Leona Pease, so that's working out well.
Okay,
Right.
motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have motion second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. Item 9 is to review and act on the request of Jeff Howland, DPW Director, for intermittent road closures, Francis Ave, Lake Street, and South Street. Good evening, Mr. Howland.
Good evening, Jeff Howland, DPW Director. As part of our 2020 Chapter 90 roadway improvement projects, we have put out a contract to do full-depth reclamation of 3 streets, Francis Ave from Main Street to Patton Street, South Street from Route 20 to Brook Street, and Lake Street from Grafton to Route 9. As part of that, so Lazaro Construction, or Lazaro Paving out of Shirley was the low bidder at roughly $947,000 for those 3 streets. As part of that, because of the construction, the full depth in which we will be pulverizing upwards of 18 inches of material, removing it, we're gonna request that during the day, while they're working on those streets, that we close those roads to traffic.
May I ask a question? Sure. Did I hear you correctly, 18 inches?
Right, so we're gonna we're gonna pulverize it, and then there are sections of those streets that have a very poor base, so we'll be taking out the base and putting in new gravel. South Street's the subgrade of South Street's poor at best. Francis, have you been down Francis?
For years I've avoided.
When they did the water main and drainage, we knew that was a bit poor, so we're basically taking out the subgrade and putting all new gravel in.
Will the final elevation be about what it is today?
Very similar, yes.
So people don't have to worry about a change in water
That's
flow in
correct.
their
And
yards and whatnot?
we surveyed each of the driveways to make sure that we weren't gonna be altering the grade significantly.
Yeah.
Francis, it's very flat, so we're doing some tweaking to try to get the grades to tie back into the catch basins that we installed last year. We are adding some Cape Cod berm to keep the water channeled in the roadway.
Pavement, Cape Cod berm,
Yes,
or
pavement.
granite?
Pavement. Mountable
Yeah.
curb. We are replacing the sidewalk on Lake Street, the entire length. If you notice, Selco's been out there the last couple of weeks relocating the poles.
Yep.
So right now, especially the section from Grafton, close to Grafton Street, there's a grass strip between the roadway and the sidewalk. We are relocating the sidewalk to be adjacent to the sidewalk, to the curb, and then moving the poles on the backside of that. 2 reasons. One, snow plowing of that sidewalk. There is quite a few stone walls along there, which we have hit up from time to time. That moves it over. Plus, grass doesn't grow very well in that section anyways, and it becomes a problem. So at the recommendation of the Highway Department, we are relocating the sidewalk. And we're also gonna do a sidewalk that's in very poor condition from the Housing Authority piece on Francis out to Main Street. As part of this, we don't know, we have somewhat of a schedule from Lazaro. They plan on starting drainage next week, which probably will not necessitate road closures. But we do have a couple of catch basins up on Lake Street that have to be relocated, have to be moved back. But that's the only drainage that we're working on this. Rest of the drainage has been done as part of previous projects. But they will be starting on South and Francis starting the full depth reclamation the week of the 22nd. We will be sending notices out to each of the residents along that route to let them know. And also we will be in contact with Alhambra Academy to talk with their principal. When we had the master plan, Route 20 master plan, week and a half or so ago, I talked to the principal. Now that I have a schedule, I can go meet with her. But this is a perfect time for them, as they don't really have a lot of students there during the summer.
So all 3 projects are basically gonna be done at the same time, not one right after the other?
So Lazaro they'll bring the miller, they're starting the drainage now. But
Yep.
that's a separate crew. They'll be
Right.
starting, so they'll do Francis. They think they can do Francis fairly quickly. So they'll come in and do that. As this crew's working here, they'll be working at Francis. As Francis gets to a certain depth, a different crew comes in. So they might be working on all 3 at the same time with different crews.
So about how long from start to finish?
They felt that they could be done within less than 2 months.
Okay.
However, obviously, weather, other circumstances, we will keep notices up on the website as we get more and more detailed on when they'll be definitely out at these locations. We'll add it to the Twitter, the Facebook page, et cetera, and our town's website. But we'll be putting notices out to each of the residents.
So if that timeline holds, when should they be done?
My guess is this is mid-July, so probably mid-September. But that includes top course paving, so we're trying to get as much of the major work done before school starts.
So that's gonna have to be coordinated with the school?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. We've been, on any project now, we meet with the school department concerning busing. And once we have a schedule better, we meet with Steve Rocco. And then we usually get a conference call with AA Transportation just to make sure we don't have a major issue.
Okay. I have one last question. Does anybody else have any questions?
I just have one quick question. What's the expected useful life? How does this usually play out, and when does, like, patchwork and stuff need to happen on roadways like this?
Ideally, we should get 20 years out of this, it all depending on use, how it was installed, to be honest.
Okay.
We have done in the past, we've done some Band-Aid approaches, but we felt these three streets were in such poor condition that we did not want to be back here in 10 years to redo these streets again, knowing that we won't be back in 10 years to do these roads again.
Okay.
We have too many other roads that need to be looked at, so we're gonna fix these roads that we've been getting chronic complaints, and rightfully so, on these roads. So.
Just one follow-up, if I may. So is that because we're going down the 18 inches as well, we're getting the longer useful life, so as opposed to what a typical resurfacing, how long would that last, just out of curiosity?
Typical resurfacing, which we can get up to 15 years.
Okay.
But these roads, Francis, if you've been down Francis, it was bad before we put the water in drainage in, which was on John Knipe's list for a long time to replace. It was delayed because we wanted to fix the water main first and fix the drainage first. So the subgrade on that is so poor, if there's even subgrade there at all. When we did the water main, we found that there was very little gravel. So a lot of these older roads, that's what we find, unless we completely replace the subgrade, we'll be back sooner than later.
Thank you.
So, at the end of Francis and Main, if you look at the road, Francis.
Yes, there's a
coming off
hump.
Right, I think that's there for a reason.
Yes, that's to keep the drainage from Main Street from going down Francis.
Right, okay, and that'll be kept.
For now, as we work with Mass Highway, will be supposed to be coming in next year to repave Main Street from the library all the way to Northborough. We'll look with them on that. Now, we added some drainage on Francis last year, which may be able to take that, but we're cognizant of, we don't want all the Main Street runoff to be heading down Francis Ave. So the hump will probably stay.
It's not a bad thing.
It's not a bad thing, but when cars actually turn on there, they have to slow down significantly to make that turn to get into Francis, but
That's not so bad either.
no. But we want to make sure we don't inundate Francis Ave with the Main Street drainage.
So that brings up another question. If they're gonna pave next year, are we doing the water on Main Street this year?
Yes.
We are.
So a water main contract was put out, and it's not, listen, we may be back again for, Main Street's State Highway. We filed a permit from Mass Highway. We have the base bid on the water contract, which came in significantly under what we estimated, and it's the same contractor that did Francis Ave last year and the Edgemere section. The first section would be from the library down to South Street. Because the numbers came in where they did, we will be putting out a second contract to go from South Street to Main Circle. And then that would take care of our oldest water main that we have in town.
Okay, one last question, I promise. Chapter 90,
Yes.
that's almost our allocation for the year, right?
That, yes, except I believe, and now we're verifying some numbers, I believe that we have roughly $200,000 left in the Chapter 90 from FY '19, or from last year's allocation. If that is the case, we were originally, I talked about the letter that I provided the board several months ago, suggested we were also gonna look at some of the smaller streets that would just be a mill and overlay, Westport, Jill Circle, Flanagan. We were concerned with the current economy that the numbers may come in higher than we expected, so we didn't want to make the mistake of putting the whole thing out and then not having enough money to do the contract and have to rebid the whole thing. So we put out those three worst roads, and now that we believe that we have some little bit extra money, we'll put out a second contract for just mill and overlay.
Okay,
So it'll be a smaller contract, again, just milling and overlays.
good, great. Any other questions? No, thank you. Thank you. Okay, so you need a vote.
Yes.
Okay, so, could I have a vote to allow DPW to make intermittent road closures of Francis Ave, Lake Street, and South Street for road renovations, repairs, rebuilding?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have motion second. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, item 10 is to review and act on the approval of the award of bonds associated with the Beal Elementary School project. Mr. Mizikar.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm very pleased to report that we accessed the bond market at 11 o'clock today and sold bonds for the Beal project. And as I may have stated before, the sale of bonds for a municipal project, I wish it was as straightforward as an auto loan, but it's not. There's a lot of moving parts. The good news is the total interest cost that the town will have to incur for this borrowing because of the time that we chose to access the market and then refortified and further lowered because of the AAA bond rating is much less than we reported to town meeting. I believe when we originally went to town meeting in the fall of 2018, we showed all of our models having an interest rate of 3.5%. We revised and recommented at the annual town meeting this past spring that we set the budget doing a single borrowing this July with a 3% interest rate, but the bond market actually yielded 2.28% for our sale today. So we're very pleased at that. It will offer significant savings. I don't have final numbers. We didn't issue the full amount, but based on today's borrowing, which is about 90% of the total maximum town's obligation for the project, we should see an interest savings about $2 million over what we were using for our estimates when we went to the town. So very pleased about that. It will mean a budget reduction will come in the fall. We originally requested $1,122,000 for the Beal interest payment that will be due in January. That number is actually going to be about $960,000, so that'll be a reduction to the tax rate because, as you remember, that won't free up money. It's excluded, so it's a direct savings to the taxpayer and a direct reduction, cost avoidance to the taxpayer, if you will. So there is documentation in front of you, and unfortunately, this is one of the painful things I have to ask someone on the board to read. Mr. LeBeau, who is the clerk, would normally have the honors. We do not have to read the chart out in its totals, but the balance of the text of the document does need to be read and voted upon by the board, which authorizes the sale of the bonds to Morgan Stanley and Company at a price of $56,132,780.65. That number is higher than what we've reported in the past. The town received a premium, which is money above and beyond what we requested, which we will use to help lower the effective interest rate and offset the principal costs. We received a principal of about 13% or almost $7 million. That shows a very healthy position that was also reflected in the AAA bond rating, so very pleased about that.
Okay, so, somebody has to read everything except for the breakdown
That's
by year?
correct. That's right.
Okay,
I'm going to draw upon my teacher instinct.
sure.
Read aloud to you
Channel
all,
whatever you
the
need
whole
to.
thing.
Yes, please.
I, the clerk of the Board of Selectmen of the town of Shrewsbury, Massachusetts, the town, certify that at a meeting of the board held July 9th, 2019, of which meeting all members of the board were duly notified and at which a quorum was present, the following votes were unanimously passed, all of which appear upon the official record of the board in my custody. Voted that the sale of the $5,490,000 general obligation municipal purpose loan of 2019 bonds of the town dated July 18th, 2019, the bonds, to Morgan Stanley and Company LLC at the price of $56,132,780.65, and accrued interest, if any, is hereby approved and confirmed. The bond shall be payable on July 15th of the years and in the principal amounts and bear interest at the respective rates as follows. Skip that.
Yep.
Further voted that in connection with the marketing and sale of the bonds, the preparation and distribution of a notice of sale and preliminary official statement dated June 27th, 2019, and a final official statement dated July 9th, 2019, the official statement, each in such form as may be approved by the town treasurer, be and hereby are ratified, confirmed, approved, and adopted. Further voted that the bonds shall be subject to redemption at the option of the town upon such terms and conditions as are set forth in the official statement. Further voted to authorize the execution and delivery of a refunding escrow agreement to be dated July 18th, 2019, between the town and U.S. Bank National Association as refunding escrow agent. Further voted that the town treasurer and the Board of Selectmen be and hereby are authorized to execute and deliver a continuing disclosure undertaking in compliance with SEC Rule 15C2-12 in such form as may be approved by bond counsel to the town, which undertaking shall be incorporated by reference in the bonds for the benefit of the holders of the bonds from time to time. Further voted that we authorize and direct the town treasurer to establish post-issuance federal tax compliance procedures and continuing disclosure procedures in such forms as the town treasurer and bond counsel deem sufficient, or if such procedures are currently in place, to review and update said procedures in order to monitor and maintain the tax-exempt status of the bonds and to comply with relevant securities laws. Further voted that each member of the Board of Selectmen, the town clerk, and the town treasurer be and hereby are authorized to take any and all such actions and execute and deliver such certificates, receipts, or other documents as may be determined by them or any of them to be necessary or convenient to carry into effect the provisions of the foregoing votes. I further certify that the votes were taken at a meeting open to the public, that no vote was taken by secret ballot, that a notice stating the place, date, time, and agenda for the meeting, which agenda included the adoption of the above votes, was filed with the town clerk, and a copy thereof posted in a manner conspicuously visible to the public at all hours in or on the municipal building that the office of the town clerk is located, or, if applicable, in accordance with an alternative method of notice prescribed or approved by the Attorney General, as set forth in 940 CMR 29.02 at least 48 hours, not including Saturdays, Sundays, and legal holidays, prior to the time of the meeting, and remain so posted at the time of the meeting, that no deliberations or decision in connection with the sale of the bonds were taken in executive session, all in accordance with General Law C.30A 18-25 as amended, dated July 9th, 2019.
Okay, thank you. So we need a second. Second?
Second.
Somebody's.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. So all set, right?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I also just note that, included, along with the Beal borrowing, as we mentioned, was the refunding of the fire station, which we originally reported about $181,000 worth of savings. It was almost 186. So, of course, things continue to improve as that interest rate goes down. So we're happy to report that as well.
Great, thank you. Okay, where are we? Item 11, review and act on the road race request from James Canzano, Crohn's and Colitis Foundation for the 8th annual Kicking Butt for Crohn's 5K road race on August 17th, 2019. This is, as he said, he's done this there's 7 other times and haven't been any problems. So what is the pleasure of the board?
Motion approved.
Second.
Okay, we have motion second. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Okay, moved on to correspondence. Item 12 is a letter dated June 24th, 2019, from WJF Geo Consultants, Inc., regarding a permanent solution report for 96 Lake Street. It's a filing that's required after the work is done related to a oil or a hazardous material spill. So noted. Item 13 is a letter dated June 25th from Ryan McNeil, MassDOT, regarding the I-495, I-90 Interchange Improvement Project, number 607977. There they're at the point in the process where they've chosen at least a conceptual design. There is going to be a stakeholder meeting tomorrow at 1 PM at 5 McAdam Road in Hopkinton, and on July 11th in Hopkinton at the Town Hall at 6:30 PM. If anybody wants to go, do we have any staff going to that, Mr.?
We do, actually, yes, yes. And actually, yes, one of the,
What?
well, one of the meetings, there's several meetings, and one of them is gonna be located in town here.
In town here?
Yeah,
The notice I got on here, Hopkinton,
okay.
but, okay.
Yep.
All right, that's good.
There'll be multiple meetings after that.
Oh, okay. Okay, item 14 is a letter dated June 25th, 2019, from the Historical Commission regarding the historic property inventory. This relates back to a motion we made to try to secure funds for the historic housing inventory. They were offering to assist, willing to assist. I think it's important to note for everybody that this was a suggestion. We want to move forward with it. There is no funding yet. We're not even going to know until the fall, so before some people get too excited, it may or may not happen depending on the financial situation then. Item 15 is an email dated June 27th, 2019, from Samis K. Silton, Mass Development, notice of a public hearing regarding CIL Realty Conduit Bond Financing, so noted. Item 16 is an email dated June 27th, 2019, from Derek Grillo, Struck Catering, 130 Hamilton Street, regarding a 12C catering event, June 30th, 2019, so noted. Item 17 is an email dated June 28th, 2019, from Lisa Powers, 8 Cherry Hill Road, regarding concerns at Hills Farm Pond. Ms. Cassavant and several members of the police department had a meeting with the neighbors regarding issues around that pond and area. So do you want to fill us in on anything?
Sure. Lisa Powers had reached out to me well over a year ago and expressed some concerns on behalf of her neighborhood regarding a park at the end of Cherry Hill Road that can also be accessed off of Stony Hill Road, and about some activity that the neighbors felt that might be taking place there that just was illegal, whether it was youth drinking or smoking marijuana. And so she came back to me in April, saying that things still hadn't improved, weather was getting warmer, is there any way that something could be done? So a meeting was arranged so that the neighbors could have an opportunity to hear from the police department, and also share their concerns with the police department, but all hear the same information from the police department. It was really well attended. There were about 40 neighborhood members that attended, and 3 officers, Lieutenant Anderson, who has been working with the neighborhood all along, and then Officer McGinnis and Officer Chesna, and they did an outstanding job, I thought, especially because Officer Chesna has the dog, and so he explained how he's taking the dog through the trails, how the dog will sniff if there's marijuana. He showed the residents, like he had a bag that would show like how much is legal, and it was just very well done, and I thought it was a great give and take between the neighbors and the police department, which I think is something that's just so unique about our community, is how responsive our public safety people are to neighborhood concerns and citizen concerns. So they are increasing their patrols. The very next day, new signs were installed, letting people know that it's a public park, that you can't be drinking there, that you can't be, having illegal drugs there. They cut down brush to improve the sight lines. They've increased their patrols, and they've encouraged the neighbors to call anytime they see something that they think might be questionable, not to try to figure it out on their own, that the calls are not an inconvenience or a nuisance, but it's the best way for the police to understand exactly what's happening. So the hope is that by increasing the patrols, word's gonna get out amongst the teen community. This is no longer a place to hide and do things that you can't do in front of your parents, so.
Great, thank you. Good job on that. Item 18 is an email dated July 1, 2019, from Jeffrey Duggan, Massachusetts Office on Disability regarding advanced notification of municipal ADA improvement grant program. Mr. Mizuka, did you see that, or did your office see that notification?
Yeah, we have seen it, and I know the assistant manager was actually calling into the Commission on Disabilities meeting, which is going on across the hall, to help prioritize some projects.
Great, okay, thank you. Item 19 is a letter dated July 1, 2019, from Christopher Maina, moderator, to Sandra Wright, town clerk, regarding Finance Committee appointment of Vikram Shambra. Item 20 is a letter dated July 1, 2019, from Christopher Maina, moderator, to Sandra Wright, town clerk, regarding Personnel Board reappointment of Anthony Froyo. Item 21 is a letter dated July 1, 2019, from Christopher Maynard, moderator, Sandra Wright, town clerk, regarding Finance Committee reappointment of Judy Vetter and Mark Adler, so noted. Item 22 is a letter dated July 1, 2019, from Christopher Maynard, moderator, to Sandra Wright, town clerk, regarding Lake Quinsigamon Commission reappointment of Kenneth Polito, so noted. Item 23 is a letter dated July 2nd, 2019, from Kevin Mizikar, town manager, regarding acting town manager, July 3rd and 5th, so noted. Item 24 is an email dated July 2nd from James Vona, fire chief, regarding Shrewsbury Firefighter Awards Night. There's an invitation to anybody who'd like to attend. There's several awards that are given out annually. That's Monday, 7/22, 7 to 8 p.m. at the headquarters station. So noted. Item 25 is an email dated July 3rd, 2019, from Aaron Flaherty, MEPR office, 100 Cambridge Street, Boston, regarding a notice of MEPR site visit, EEA numbers 16058, Edgemere Crossing at Flint Pond in Shrewsbury, which I believe was held today at 2 p.m., right? Okay, so noted. Item 26 is an email dated July 3rd, 2019, from David Singer, 400 South Street, regarding meeting request. More on Centec Park, Allen Farm, misfortune to fortune, multi-page letter. Mr. Singer has raised some issues. Most importantly, the letter was asking for a delay in that hearing because he can't attend. It's the board's hearing scheduled for 7/23 regarding the master plan for the site. I would recommend that the board, chair, send a letter to Mr. Singer, informing him that unfortunately we don't reschedule hearings if people in the public cannot attend unless there's some weather emergency, but that he's welcome to supply his comments, written comments, to the board. I think his letter lays out several of his issues, and I do know that he's been in communication, has been at the Conservation Commission hearings, I think another planning board hearing, and is extended conversations with Mr. Cahill. So it's not an issue of him not having an opportunity to have his comments heard. So my recommendation is that we continue to hold the hearing on 7/23.
I'm sure, Mr. Chairman, over the years, we've taken written comments and made adjustments along the way, and I'm sure you'll provide him with a thorough response to his letter of concern. Certainly, the gentleman can follow it up with additional points that he would like us to take into consideration. I might ask if you could ask the office to that night, for that night's meeting, to recirculate his letter to everyone, so we have it fresh in front of us that night.
Okay, good
And
idea.
any other comments that might come in from folks, whether they be on an agenda or what at that point, but that we can have everything in front of us.
You can enter them into the record, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
But also, we can have them in front of us as the hearing is held.
okay.
Also, isn't this hearing time sensitive
Yes.
for the SDC, correct? Because,
Yes, it is.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we really, I mean, cannot move it.
But this has been a process that's been going on for a long time, so it isn't as if this is the first opportunity that the public's had an opportunity to speak on it, so. Okay, we'll get a letter out to Mr. Singer on that. Item 27 is a letter dated July 3rd, 2019, from Zian Lu, 69 High Street, regarding new speed, a speed or a warning sign at 69 High Street. If you read the letter, there's been accidents there. That is a tight curve, and perhaps we should send this over to the police and highway
I just
engineering
wanted to
to
comment
take a
on
look at it.
69 High Street. So I live right near there, so I drive High Street all the time. And I will say, as far as their house goes, I can see where their mailbox is getting hit. I'm surprised people are missing the stone wall and the fire hydrant. But I think what the problem is recently is that all the land got cleared that was the Blue property, and now it's making the water run down. And so even when it's just like those mornings where it's like 33 degrees out, 34, it's freezing. And so it's creating like a luge. And I think that's why people are having problems on that corner.
So perhaps we could ask also planning to look at it, if they did that as part of work for that preparation.
Because the
for
land
those
is clear,
lots.
but they're not building on it yet, but it really is making water on the road that was never there before.
Okay, good to know. Okay, we'll do that. Is there anything else to come before the board in open session? No? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have motion second. All those in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so voted. This meeting is adjourned. Good evening.